Alright, time to finally continue with the Game of Thrones vids, like a year and a half after I made the review for the first season. Sorry about that, it's just what happens, right? So season 2, I think it was a good season, but I do have my problems with it. I feel like the main distinguisher between this season and season one was that season one felt like basically the same quality throughout. So that's not to say that it had strong and weak points, but it just felt the same. This season kept rising between good points and not so great points, and then good, feeling good for a while, and then just being a little more meh because this season had, I think, the best moments of the series and some of the worst moments. One of the worst moments is actually this season living up to its name with all the Clash of the Kings things going on. I mean, like, obviously the Starks are against the Lannisters, but then there's also those two kingdoms with brothers leading them. I think the elk is their symbol, just like attacking each other. Yeah, I just felt like that storyline was completely unnecessary, and then the stragglers for one group appear to join the Lannisters, and then the other group joins the Starks. Just really? Yeah, and just a disclaimer, if anyone complains about the fact that I don't really have characters' names memorized in here, well, there's so many characters, it's kind of tough to memorize, and I actually only just watched the show. I haven't read any of the books, although that might not be a bad idea. Maybe it'll happen, right. So then, how do I feel about all the other storylines? I feel like they were progressed in a good way for the most part, despite my issues with them. But the biggest thing that gets to me is still the big thing that gets to me about season one. Throughout this entire series, all these families are concentrating on attacking or trusting each other, and yet the biggest problems are beyond the wall and completely over the sea. Yeah, it's just so funny that they think the biggest problems are each other, and that's not even the case. I'm, and like heck, this season even makes you somewhat support the Lannisters because, well, Peter Dinklage's character, obviously nobody wants to see him get hurt, and then there was even a couple of moments that make you not sympathize, but like understand Jaime's mother. And I like how she somewhat breaks the role of females not really being able to do anything or thought of as being less important. I mean, like, I realize that this is trying to portray a medieval society, so, women were like that, but it's still annoying for me to see that. Because, the girl that accompanies Peter Dinklage, she's a pretty strong-willed woman, and she has potential to do a lot of stuff. It's unfortunate that we didn't get to see much of that in this season, although she definitely was a lot better here than in season one, because season one I didn't really like her. Here, I like her, yeah. She really had a purpose. There. Okay, so I was busy talking about all the various sub-stories going on there, so Robb Stark and his mother doing their thing. Season one, I honestly found that interesting, but here it's just them holding Jaime's father hostage on the sidelines of the Clash of Kings battle, and then they just let Jaime's father go. Yeah, not that great. And even that story where Robb Stark falls in love with that female nurse, that only lasts like one episode. Maybe I'll get a little bit more from them in the next bit, although, what happened to Robb's friend, I can never remember his name. Well, that was interesting. I gotta admit, just all of a sudden, that guy turns on the people that he's been growing up with all of his life. Now, it does get mentioned repeatedly and very convincingly that they never fully accepted him, and he always had to live with the knowledge that he wasn't a Stark. Yes, but I really do think the Starks offered all the compassion to him that they could, and just how he turns against them, yeah, bro. Definitely thought a little bit less of him as the season went on. Although I should have had my clue when he was trying to woo the woman that he didn't know was his sister, but that's just, I'm not even going to go into those waters. Ooh, right. Okay. And then there's the story of the Lannisters trying to keep control of King's Landing. Once we got a little closer to the battle and how all these Lannisters are busy confronting each other, it definitely got a lot more interesting seeing the dynamics on that family, because like Peter Dinklage, he's just like fed up with his sister's attitude about not just all the other families, but now that she's in power, just yeah, and like that's the weird thing about Peter Dinklage's character, because like technically he should be happy that his family is now in power, but instead he's just annoyed that they have to do all the stuff that they're doing, when apparently in his mind a lot of that could have been avoided. Anxious to see what he'll do in future seasons. And question to you people who understand the show a lot more than me: how did the knowledge that Jamie's mother and Jamie's father, were the ones that actually are Jamie's parents, leak out? I mean, like, obviously Ned Stark figured it out in the first season and taught a couple of people, but just, like, how did everybody, like, figure it out? It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, like, sure, people have observational skills, but I don't know, just the sheer level of who figured it out, just all these ordinary peasants. And like Peter Dinklage, you would think that he wouldn't be able to figure it out, but he did seem to imply that he had known for a very long time, once we got to like 2/3 through the season. Right. And then there's a couple of other issues that I've got with how the Lannisters handled things, because like the true head of the Lannister family coming in at like the end of the season, putting aside Peter Dinklage and taking over his power, really? And when Jamie's mother was actually going to kill her youngest son? What? Seriously? You were that ready to? Yeah, and when did Peter Dinklage's cousin, actually suddenly get a will to fight? In that first season, you really got the impression that that guy was off by quite a few brain cells. Or maybe that was just the previous king just ranting like kings probably do. So enough about the Lannisters. I think I've shredded them to ribbons. What was going on beyond the wall? Well, obviously this season was just a transition. Mark, I think next season with this story arc is going to be a lot more interesting. That's not to say, though, it wasn't completely boring, because, like, all of Snow's interactions with that woman on, like, the, well, lack of a better term, Eskimo tribe, that is interesting, and what those other Night Watchers guys were thinking of being in a new environment and questioning their purpose once they see how their leaders are interacting with the natives. Yeah, I'm interested to see what these characters are going to do, but, like, here's the thing. Season 1 seriously seemed to imply that, like, the wall was, like, the edge of, shall we say, developed countrysides, and that beyond that, it was just more hostilities. But apparently, it seems like these guys on the Night Watch go beyond the wall quite often, as these leaders seem to know a good amount of the landscape. And a lot of these native tribes apparently knew that the Night Watch existed, and that they know full well what it is they do. That's a little odd. And that first White Walker that fat guy sees, is that supposed to be like Snow's uncle? I mean, like, I don't think Snow's uncle had a beard that was that long, but they seem to indicate that we should pay attention to that particular White Walker. At least I think it's a White Walker, but why are they suddenly human-like? Because, like, I thought in the start of Season 1 that they were, like, well, much different. Right. So, yeah, it's definitely more interesting and much easier to understand than, like, that Clash of Kings a little bit that happened there. And what's the deal with that woman giving birth to, like, a spirit that could suddenly show up and just, like, kill somebody? Come on! Talk about cheap! Right. And then we have a Daenerys or Khaleesi's storyline across the sea. Well, let's face it, for half the season, there really wasn't that much to see because they were just struggling to find civilization. And then for the second half, it's just them trying to figure out who's lying to them. And in the end, they end up getting betrayed by one of Daenerys' closest henchwoman. And the moment I saw that her body wasn't like among everybody else, I was like, but where's the other person that Khaleesi talked to all the time? If the one of the other women was right there, she should be there too. Yeah, and like I've never gotten what was her motive to just betraying Daenerys, because I mean, like obviously the black guy told her that he was going to kill Daenerys, but it's just too simple. And like her counterpart in the book appears to die right at the beginning of this season, so just that doesn't make any sense in my eyes, especially since they did appear to have quite a big connection. But the plus side was that it did have a satisfactory conclusion, because even though she doesn't have that many men with her, she now has the ability to cross the seas. And it's going to be interesting to see what that aide guy she's with will do once they get back to the Seven Kingdoms. And I don't entirely remember why he is with her. Someone might be explaining that to me, yeah. So I know that I was kind of a little all over the place and definitely displaying my ignorance, but it was a fun season, despite it having higher and lower points than the first season, because this season seemed to have a lot less clearer purpose than season 1, but I'm not complaining. I know how heavily detailed this story is. I mean, like, for crying out loud, you see how thick the books are and how thin the type is? Come on. Right. So I don't know when I'm going to begin in season 3, but it'll happen eventually.